Hi, I'm Travis.
And I'm Josh.
And in this video, we're going to show you how to clean your GHOST MV1.
Before using the MV1 or cleaning it for the first time, we strongly recommend that you watch the introductory video on how the MV1 works from start to finish.
Cleaning the MV1 is a breeze. There are hardly any parts that need to be cleaned regularly. But to keep your MV1 looking like new and to maintain optimum performance, you need to make sure the vapor pathway is kept clean.
The frequency of cleaning is of course dependent on how often you use your device, but for most people who use it every day, a weekly clean is usually all that's needed.
Let's start by showing you the external parts first. The plated parts, including the faceplate and the soft touch finish on the back, should only be wiped over gently with a soft cloth.
Never use isopropyl alcohol, or ISO as it's commonly known, to clean these surfaces. You shouldn't use any other chemicals or abrasive substances either. A wipe with a soft cloth is really the only thing you need to keep the external parts looking like new.
To clean the vapor path and internal area, start by opening the latch door and removing the crucible. The best time to clean the device is shortly after a session and when the internal parts are still warm.
Next, remove the heatsink assembly. The correct way to do this is to rest your thumb slightly underneath the upper silicone door seal like this and gently apply pressure to the base of the green silicone. The whole assembly will pop up for removal. Never try to remove either of the green silicone seals in the MV1. This here is the entire vapor path. First, remove the glass stem. Next, gently pry off the top of the lid using your finger and thumb. The heatsink body, lid, inner ceramic sleeve, and gasket are all directional, which makes it very easy to put them back together.
The black rubber gasket seal lifts off with minimal pressure. After multiple uses, you may notice the ceramic inner sleeve sometimes gets a little sticky around the base. But just like all of the other parts, it looks like new after cleaning.
The base of the heatsink housing also gets a little clogged up, but this demonstrates just how effective the MV1 is in terms of extraction.
The parts you can see here are the crucible, stainless steel crucible lid, glass stem, ceramic sleeve, and the main body of the heatsink. These can all be cleaned now using 91% isopropyl alcohol.
These parts here, the heatsink cover and the black rubber gasket sealing, are not directly exposed to vapor and should never be soaked or cleaned using ISO. To clean the cover and gasket, simply wipe them using a soft, damp cloth.
Next, take the heatsink housing, ceramic crucible, stainless steel lid, ceramic inner sleeve, and glass stem, and put them in a small container.
If you've been using your MV1 with concentrates, you can also clean the concentrate pad using the ISO.
It's made from high-grade stainless steel, just like the crucible lid, so the isopropyl alcohol won't harm it in any way.
Next, fill the glass with ISO, so it's just covering the component parts, and leave it standing for a couple of minutes.
As mentioned earlier, the best time to clean the heatsink components is just after a session and when they're still warm.
Use a swizzle stick or a wooden stirrer. You don't want to use metal here as it could damage the parts. Gently stir backwards and forwards, both clockwise and counterclockwise, for a minute or two in each direction.
You can clean the inside of the glass stem by dipping a Q-tip into some ISO and then pushing it in and out of the stem. You can see the parts have been really well cleaned by the ISO, but you might still have a little discoloration on the crucible. This is where the crucible has been exposed to the superheated air, but it's perfectly normal and nothing to be concerned about. Depending on how dirty they are and the type of material that you've been vaporizing, the small holes in the crucible lid can get easily clogged after a few uses. You can minimize the lid cleaning frequency when using dry herbs by simply wiping them clean with your finger when you empty the crucible at the end of each session.
You should still clean them at the same time as the heatsink though, especially if you've been using concentrates.
Wiping the lid with your finger after concentrate use will just clog up the holes. Soaking them in ISO and gently agitating them as shown usually does the trick, but if the lids are still dirty, try waving them backwards and forwards in ISO like this.
I sometimes clean my lids in hot water under a running faucet using an old toothbrush. Make sure you brush downwards and away from yourself though, and don't try this with ISO as you could splash some into your eye.
You can leave all the parts to air dry before assembling them, but I usually give them a quick rinse under hot water first.
And if you do rinse them in running water, make sure that you put a plug in the sinkhole first. Always make sure the parts are dry before reassembling them. While we're waiting for the parts to dry, we can finish cleaning the device. The crucible door can be cleaned if necessary using the corner of a soft cloth or a Q-tip dipped in ISO. Never try removing the green silicone seals. It's not necessary, and if are put back incorrectly, can risk an imperfect vapor seal. The bottom seal should never be removed under any circumstances, and doing so may void your warranty.
The silicone seals are not directly in the vapor path, so they never get too dirty. To clean the seals and the internal seating for the area of the heatsink, you should turn the device upside down so you don't drop anything in the heating chamber below.
The outer ring of the silicone usually only needs an occasional wipe with a soft, damp cloth. The top inner cavity can be wiped gently every few cleans with a soft cloth, and the green silicone inner seals can be gently cleaned with a Q-tip if required.
The silicone is not in the vapor path, so it doesn't get very dirty. But if you don't have a lot of buildup on the base of the heatsink, it can sometimes wipe off onto the silicone when you remove the heatsink.
The green silicone seal is resistant to ISO, so you can wipe any residue from the heatsink off gently with a Q-tip dipped in ISO. But always do this upside down or at a downwards angle. This is to prevent anything from falling into the heating chamber.
Alternatively, you could put the crucible and lid back in place and close the crucible door when cleaning the inner top seals from above.
But we recommend inverting the device.
Now that we've cleaned the internal area, we can go ahead and reassemble the heatsink. Reassembling the heatsink is just as easy as taking it apart.
The components are directional, so you can't really go wrong here, but it's important that you do it in the right sequence.
First, you need to position the black rubber gasket onto the inner ceramic sleeve with the indented tab facing towards you.
Once you've placed the gasket into position, lower the assembled parts into the outer heatsink shell.
As mentioned earlier, the parts are directional, so you just need to match the indented black gasket tab to the corresponding slot on the outer heatsink shell.
Then push the gasket snugly into position with your thumb so it sits flush with the top of the shell. Next, take the top lid and position the matching directional tab of the lid into the matching groove on the outer shell. Clip the front edge into position and make sure it's secure and assembled correctly. Now gently slide the glass stem back into the housing.
It's very important to make sure you have a perfectly sealed heatsink. This is because an incorrectly assembled heatsink or a damaged gasket will result in an air bypass, and if that happens, you may char your herb.
An air bypass can also restrict the flow of air through the heat exchanger, which can result in overheating or uneven ABV with reduced extraction.
You can check that you have a perfectly sealed heatsink by placing the bottom of the heatsink onto your palm of your hand and holding it down firmly. Then try sucking air through the extended glass stem and confirm no air is passing through. All you have to do now is put the crucible back into the device.
First, close the door on the front of the device and gently push the heatsink back into place.
It's important that you close the door first before you reposition the heatsink, and this is because the top silicone could push the heatsink up if the door wasn't closed first.
The heatsink is also directional, so it cannot be put into place incorrectly.
When raising or lowering the stem, please rest your thumb on the top edge of the heatsink. This is to prevent the lid from moving upwards while you pull up the stem. If you pull the top lid off, you'll have partially disassembled the heatsink, which will result in an air bypass, reduced vapor, and the potential for charring and overheating.
Now, all that's left for you to do is to give the device a last gentle wipe over with a soft cloth, and your MV1 is ready to be used again.
We hope you enjoyed this video on how to clean the MV1.
And please take the time to watch the full introductory video on how to use the MV1 and the other short videos on how to use the MV1 with dry herbs or concentrates and how to use the app.
If you take the time to watch these carefully, you will see how simple the device is to use, and it will really help you get the best performance out of it as well. Thanks for watching.